But for me, he's on the list of the greatest of all time in all the ways that define greatness.
Pro boxing fans in Riyadh, it's the morning after the big one, the undisputed clash. Oleksandr Usyk, the heavyweight champion of the world, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. With me, none other than the boxing knowledge, Teddy Atlas. How are you, sir?
Good. A little tired. Got to bed about 6 o'clock this morning, like everybody else probably. After that kind of event, your adrenaline is going. It's hard to shut down. Plus, you have a lot of people to talk to and interviews to do and texts to return, and everybody back home, curious about what it felt like and the event and everything else. So it took a while to be able to get to bed, but it was the kind of event you would hope it would be when you have that kind of hype, that kind of promotion, all the resources that was put into this event. I said to somebody last night, back in the States, one of the biggest sporting events probably is the Super Bowl. And obviously they spend weeks, building it up and with all the publicity, the promotion, everything else. And then you just hope that the game lives up to the hype. And sometimes you get a game that is just a flop. It doesn't live up to it. And then sometimes you get a great game. We got a great game. We got a Super Bowl worthy game and fight for everything that that night was was standing for. Unified title, first time in 25 years, 2 undefeated heavyweight champions, and also, as I said days before the fight, a chance, talking about history, a chance also to answer that age-old question in boxing: who wins between the good big man and the good little man? So you got that extra bonus in there, and you just had a monumental night. But really, at the end of the day, as much as their skills were really on display, one guy standing on the outside for the first half of the fight, Fury controlling, you could even say dominating with the jab, his reach, staying at a range that fitted him, that suited him, making it hard for Usyk to close the gap. I had said a couple of days before, if he does that, the way I used to always say it, when you have a shorter guy and a longer guy, taller guy, knows how to use the jab and keeps him at bay, it puts all the emphasis and the onus on the shorter guy to take risks, and he's got to go through a bad neighborhood. And when you go through a bad neighborhood, sometimes some bad things can happen, and some bad things were happening while he was trying to go through that bad neighborhood for Usyk early on. But he finally got through the neighborhood, and and he's a guy that doesn't get mugged. That's the thing. Certain guys, even if they go through bad neighborhoods, you ain't mugging them, because they're not allowing it. But in all seriousness, with all those skills, his jab, his size, Fury, controlling the outside, going to the body, doing what he was supposed to do, he did that, using the uppercut. I thought he could have used it more, to be frank, but all of that. And then at the end of the day, what really was at play, and it is always at play in this sport that I've been in 50 years now. Customato, my mentor, used to always tell me, I was 17 years old, a young fighter, and then later on became a trainer. But he would always say to me, Teddy, never forget that when two men's skills are fairly comparable at a certain level, it comes down to whose will is stronger. And will always defeat skill. Now listen, Fury showed great will too, but that's what it came down to. It came down to will. And again, my hat's off to Fury. I applaud him for surviving that 9th round. Extraordinary. Surviving that round, and then it still wasn't right in the 10th. And then to come back in the 11th and 12th and not just survive. The 10th was more to survive after the beating he took. But then to come back in 11th and 12th, close rounds, contested round, really tight rounds, and fight. I didn't understand where he was saying that his corner should have told him, you know, and listen, it's in the heat of the moment. So things that people say, you got to try to understand. They just fought. Not too many people out there who ever experienced that. You know, just haven't finished, and then they put a microphone in front of you. You know, and not too many people will understand the emotions, the currents that are running through you at that moment. You know, and conflicting feelings, and you know, just raw feelings. But the one thing that caught me by a little bit of surprise was when Fury had said, you know, if they would have told me I was behind. I don't think anyone knew what the cards or could know because the fight was very close. But I don't know that they, I guess maybe somebody was saying just stay away. That's what he was saying. But no matter what was said, I saw what Fury did. It didn't look like he stayed away in the 11th to 12th. That's what confused me when he said that. He said, I would have went after him. To me, he did go after him. To me, and I applaud him for it. He behaved like a champion. I always say, it's one thing to fight like a champion, but when the moment comes, you have to behave like one. They both knew how to behave like one, including Fury, as I just said. But the main thing, with all the tangibles leading up to this fight, and we saw them, the physical assets, the physical abilities, you know, Fury's size, his athleticism, his agility, his jab, all of that. And his cerebralness. He was smart enough to go to the body. He understood that was an advantage. He's not a body puncher, but he did go to the body, and he went to the body fairly effectively. But for all of that, for the ability of Usyk, which I pointed out, to counterpunch, you know, to put punches together better than Fury does, at the end that paid off. But to put punches together, you know, to have a good defense, to turn defense into offense, for all of that, you could make a list of all those things, right? There was one thing that was not tangible. That was the most important thing, the most important factor. And it was the factor why right now a man from the Ukraine is the unified heavyweight champion of the world. And I said it all week. He knew his greatest asset was his ability to find a way to win. And during the fight, I remember turning to my son, it was around the 8th round. I turned to my son, I said, that ability I've been talking about, his ability to find a way to win, it's about time it better show up now. If it's ever going to show up, it better show up soon. And then the 9th round, it showed up. And really, that's what it was. You could say, well, he did this, Teddy, from a technical I get it. I understand it. I've been training fighters for 50 years. I've been in the business. I understand it, but I also understand it was that thing that you can't quantify. You can't, you don't measure it the way you measure the other abilities, speed or power, those things. The ability to find a way to win, and that was there. That was present, and look, from a technical standpoint, from a physical standpoint, when he hurt him, I had said leading up to the fight, Fury has the ability to control the outside. And if he wants to, he could go and try to impose himself physically on you. But I believe his best bet is to control the outside. I said Usyk's going to have to figure out a way to nullify his jab and to be able to penetrate that distance. But I said the day before, and I said on the Zone, they were interviewing me the night of, and I said, there's one other area we're not looking at. We're all looking at the outside and everything else, and that Fury has an advantage there. But Usyk is a much better inside fighter. If he gets inside, he will have opportunities because Fury's never learned how to fight inside. You know, Fury, I give him a lot of credit. He's like he was like a work in progress his whole career. Like, he didn't have a lot of amateur fights, you know, the way that Usyk did. But he's a guy that had athleticism. He comes from a bloodline of fighters. They've been a fighter mentally, you know, physically their whole life. But he's never formally for me at least, from what I can see and put together, he's never formally had any kind of real formal boxing training. Maybe recently with Sugar Hill he's had some in the last year or whatever it's been, but never really any formal. And you could see it. You could see the areas where he hasn't learned, he's not developed. And one of those areas is on the inside. And I did a fight plan on my podcast. It was on it's still out there, and it received a lot of views. And one of the opportunities that I gave for Usyk to exploit was when they get inside close, where Fury does one of two things. Either he'll throw at you his hands a little low, where he leaves himself a little bit available. He'll chuck punches at you, but he'll give up defense with his offense. But I said the most glaring form that he's never been taught is when he gets close, for the most part, rather than know how to fight inside, he looks to clinch. Win on the outside, clinches, throw a couple shots, but for the most part, clinch on the inside. And I said, but when he goes to clinch, he's never even learned how to do that properly, where he'll expose himself to get to you. And he'll, as his arms come out, those big, large arms, there's a gap, there's a hole, there's an opportunity to punch in between that. And I said, if Usyk is aware of that, and I'm sure he is, he's going to have an opportunity somewhere in the fight where Fury, if Usyk is able to penetrate, which he has to win, and put pressure on him, I think when they get to that place, Usyk's going to look to clinch, being that, again, he's not comfortable fighting inside. He's never been taught that. And when he goes to clinch, there's going to be an opportunity. When he got hurt, he went to clinch, he got hurt again. Because, again, he didn't know what else to do. And by going to clinch, he left himself available, and he got caught more punches. And again, that's where the advantage of Usyk being a combination puncher really paid off. Where people said, oh, he's not going to be able to hurt Fury. Let me tell you something. You can hurt anybody if you catch them clean and you put them together. And if you're a guy that times somebody and catches them punches they don't see, which I think was part of it, you're going to hurt them. And that moment when he got caught, you could see it was counterpunches. You could see that Fury had just finished throwing 2 shots with his hands low, giving up defense, and Usyk came right back with the counter shots and caught him clean, hurt him, stayed on him. And again, when he went to clinch, he left himself open even more, exposed himself.
I do want to ask you, there's a few things in regards to the fight that I've got to see. We've not really watched the fight back because it was so late and this early enough this morning, this afternoon. A lot of people are talking, and this is what I want to ask you. Somebody who's been a trainer in the corner, there's a clip coming out online about Fury's corner, and there was a few voices that were giving instructions to Fury.
Very difficult. Listen, I can't speak for them. That's their choice. That's it. And I'm not knocking. I am not going to knock a fighter and his people that have been this successful for this long. I'm not doing that because, we forgot that this fight was for the unified title. That means he did pretty good to get to this place, don't it? This wasn't a fight to become the number 1 contender. This wasn't a fight to have a chance to have a career, to have a chance, to be able to take care of your family and achieve all the great things what we all want to achieve in this business, or in any business that we dedicate ourselves to. No, this was a fight where he was already at the top of the mountain, and he got this fight because he was at the top of the mountain. So that means the people with him did something to get to the top of the mountain. So now that it shows certain things, that it exposed certain things, you could say because this was the best fighter that Fury had ever fought. Yeah, you could maybe, but still, you can't take away that they did get this far with what they had. But this was the best fight he was fighting. This was obviously the best fighter for Usyk at the same time that he was fighting. All I can speak for myself is, if I'm going to train someone, there's going to be one voice, because it's a tough enough business to try to figure out inside all that chaos and that can be in a fight. it's already a tough enough business to ascertain what you have to do and to have a clear path of thinking towards what you have to do. It's tough enough with one person talking, much less with two. I just know personally, I will not train a fighter if I'm not the only voice in the corner. I just won't go there.
The only reason I asked that question was there was a bit of talk online whilst I was reading into it, and you talked about sort of what Tyson said in regards to what his corner chef said. Obviously, his corner are well established in Sugar Hill, Andy Lee, and his father who were there, so it was just a question that I needed to ask. I do want to ask you though, Oleksandr Usyk, for what he's done in the cruiserweight, undisputed, now undisputed heavyweight. You've seen many good heavyweights. You've obviously been in the corner of coach Mike Tyson in the early days. You've seen many in the last...
And Michael Mora, when we beat Holyfield for the heavyweight title, I was blessed enough that I was able to be with Mora. And Mora won the heavyweight title, became the first southpaw.
Where does Oleksandr Usyk rank amongst the people that you've been in the corner of, the people that you've cautioned, the people you've seen in the last 30, maybe 40 years?
One of the greatest winners I've ever seen. And I'm going to say this. When we talk about fighter, we talk about his greatness in a way of how complete is he. You know, when we used to talk about Tyson, Mike Tyson, we used to say, all right, what differentiates him is that he had power in either hand. Some guys had power in one hand, but he could punch like hell with either hand. And he mixed that power with a great combination of speed. So that separated him, that defined him in his own category. You know how I define Usyk? He's got the greatest combination of overall technical, where he's solid in all areas. There's no areas where he's weak. You know, he might not ever be able to say that he could punch like a Mike Tyson or, you know, or that he had the pure scintillating speed of an Ali. But he was solid technically in all areas, and he is solid in all areas. There's nothing you could really attack and say, well, he's poor in that area. He's solid in all areas. But he is also solid in the area of character. He is the most, I would make him up there with people like, I mean, Holyfield was one of those guys too, but where he doesn't have the greatest talent in one area of any fighter, but he uses his talent in a consistent way. In a consistent way, he finds a way to use that talent and get the most out of that talent. And he has no real technical flaws, but he's a guy that the glue that puts all that together is his overall strength of character. You know, you could define it any way you want. His will, you know, his resiliency. But I'm just talking about it. The core that makes him great is his character. His greatest strength is his character. His overall, what makes him the person that he is. That is what makes him that fighter. His overall strength of inner core character, the human being that he is, that he cares about other people, that he's a selfless man, that he's a man that obviously believes in things greater than ourselves. Obviously, from everything I know about him, he's a great family man. Again, that is something that we kind of forget with these great athletes. We think about all the things that are so easy to quantify, so easy, you know, to kind of, you know, to look at, this, you know, neon, the things that light up, the neon abilities. But just the core of his strength inside, he's one of the best. He has earned the right to be put on that list now with the greatest in that way. He he'll never be on the list of the greatest heavyweight puncher or the fastest heavyweight in the world. But for me, he's on the list of the greatest of all time in all the ways that define greatness.
Teddy, always a pleasure talking to you about boxing and everything that happens. No doubt I'll be seeing you at some point in Riyadh again. I think there's the October close for this rematch to happen. The rematch.
Yeah, I don't see. I can tell you right now, I take a pretty good guess. It ain't happening. And what date did you say the rematch?
There's a date possibly in October.
I'm gonna take a wild guess over here, and it's not gonna make me Nostradamus, but ain't happening. Not after that night and everything they went through. I can't see it happening that fast.
Cool. Teddy Atlas, thank you so much. Have a safe journey home. And no doubt we'll keep in touch for sure, sir. Thank you very much.
Best to you and your family.